I am so angry with the United Kingdom. And that's terrible to say. I was born here. I was raised here. My roots are here. My son is being raised here. And it's horrible to say that I don't like my own country. But it's true. Every single day, this world is collapsing, I guess. I guess that's the only way to put it. We are diminishing as a nation, and we're not doing anything about it. Not really. Some days I wish that I could be Prime Minister, because I feel that no one else is doing the right job. I feel, personally, that things need to change. Food prices are becoming absolutely crazy. I'm sorry, but it is not okay that I have gone out food shopping today to discover that every single item has gone up by at least 20 pence. 20 pence. 20p. How's that okay? Because 3 days ago that wasn't like that. I know it wasn't. And every day things are going up in price. Taxes are going up and everything's going up. And then you look at the wages. And then you realise that in 1999, making £28,000 a year was good. It was alright. Lots of people made £28,000 a year in 1999. Yet if you got that today, wow, well done. But the money doesn't go as far. In fact, if you earned £28,000 a year and you were a single person, you would struggle to rent a property. That's what it's like. Trying to rent, trying to buy, everything, it's just extortionate. I'm personally looking at the potentiality of moving at the moment, and I've been priced out of the system. I've been completely priced out of everything, And when I look into it, it makes no sense, because 5 years ago, 2020, I got accepted on a flat down in Sussex, 2-bedroom flat above a shop for £650 per calendar month. Yeah, that same flat is like £1,500 now. I don't know why. I don't know how that's even feasible or even possible, but I don't know how people can afford it. That's the truth. I don't know physically how someone can afford £1,500 a month. Because what is £1,500 a month? That is 18 grand a year, something like that. 18,000 pounds a year. And if you're earning 28 grand, right, you can have a child, right? You might not be able to work 96 hours a week like a lot of people do. And you can have a child and you could be making £28,000 a year, and the majority of it's going on rent. And then we include council tax at what? £1,600 to just over £2,000 a year. Depends on where you live in the country, in the nation. What I'm saying is everything's going up in price. And even when I got my council tax bill the other day, I had a look at it and I was just like, this makes no sense. Why has my council tax gone up by like £200 from last year? Where am I going to get this £200 from? Like, really? I make videos on adverse possession. I'm supporting a child. I am trying to live as cheaply as possible. I'm teaching people how to get land for free. And then I'm having to deal with the additional costs, which make no sense, to be honest with you, because, I have a Facebook page, right? It's called Freedom Hackers Escape the System. If you want to join it, links in the description below. Basically, I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to make a community of people together to escape the system and fight things like this. Not necessarily fight your council tax, but find ways of living off grid and living below your means, I guess. And, I already am living below my means. I'm living greatly below my means, and even I'm struggling to get by, and I'm not the only person. This is the thing, right? I am not the only person in this situation. I know loads of people. I have relatives who are in this situation, who are struggling day in and day out. And then there are people who are homeless. And I've been there. I was homeless from 17 years old. A lot of people who watch this channel these days are actually from after the homeless phase, which is crazy. But I spent years homeless, and even away from this camera, whilst, in the last few years, I've been homeless. Because I don't put everything online. And I have spent, I don't even know how many years homeless now, to be honest with you. I was homeless 2017, 2018, 2019, not 2020, not 2021. 2022 I was, 2023 I was, the first month of 2024 I was. So, you know, I'm 5 years ago me would be jealous of where I am now. You know, so I can only imagine what the next 5 years will bring. That's my phrase. That's what I like to say. And it's true. 5 years ago me would be jealous, you know. I'm doing all right. You know, I'm trying my best at least, you know. Back 5 years ago, I might not have been able to cope with the stress I have now, stress which you guys don't obviously see in day-to-day life. But then this country it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. You know, they keep putting extra restrictions in for everything. You know, I'm not going to get into the migrant issue because that is an opinion for everyone, and I choose not to view opinions on that. But that is a situation in this country. You know, I'm not going to be someone going keep him out and all that or let him in. I'm not having an opinion out there. But when you look at the picture of it, you know, it does have some sort of effect on the economy. And you know, there's jokes that I've heard many times where, did you know if you went to the beach with a piece of driftwood and you started speaking Arabic, you'd be given a house and money? And I hate to say that because even though that is horrible to say for a massive group of people who are struggling in the world, right? That's a horrible phrase to say. But does it have some truth? Like, I'm not telling you to go to the beach with a piece of driftwood and start speaking Arabic. I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying that there are people who are homeless who can't get housed. And I was there. I remember when the council told me that my car was a roof over my head and I couldn't get housed. And the thing is, that's now a luxury, living in your car. There are so many van lifers. And the thing is, right, is when I was a van lifer, I wasn't a van lifer because I wanted to be. I was a van lifer because I had to be. And that's a question that I want to ask many people who are in the alternative living community. Are you doing it because you want to, or are you doing it because you have to? That's the big picture of it. Are you living in a van, you know, defecating in a bucket or in the woods because you want to? Or are you doing it because you have no choice, because you can't afford rent? You know, I know many people who have gone low. I know many people who have gone above it. I know many people who have had more struggles than most realise. And the thing is you see people complain on the news, but I don't think I've actually seen a proper video of people going, do you know what, this sucks. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm saying this sucks. This country sucks. This nation sucks. It does. Don't say it doesn't, because it does. At the end of the day, I'm just a dad with a past of homelessness, living in a storage unit, right? But I'm just a dad trying to support my son. That's all I'm trying to do in the world, really. And yeah, I would love to build my own house. That's true. Now, am I building my own house because I want to build my own house, or am I building it because it's cheaper, I can stay off grid so I'm not having to deal with the additional bills and everything? Yeah, that's the truth, to be honest, because electric bills don't get me started. Because I know how much I owe the electric company right now, and I can't fathom that my electric bill is like £300 a month. It makes no sense. I'm in a two-bedroom flat. I'm in a two-bedroom flat. And it's £300 a month. Not every month. Obviously, we have just had winter. And right now I've got the heating off. You know, it's not like that every month. But to be honest with you, it has been at some points. It's not cheap. Okay, I don't have a gas property. You know, we don't have gas lines here. So that, you know, there's that cost. But like, when I realised that I could buy a house in this country for £400,000, that sucks. I hate that price. Yeah, I get it. I could go live in Durham or, you know, Millinower, Scotland for 50 grand. I get it. I know there's those possibilities available, but logistically speaking, having a child, connections, things like that, right? It, you know, if I was on my own, actually, to be fair, if I was on my own, I wouldn't even be in this country. But, you know, logistically speaking, a £400,000 budget for a property these days is what people are looking at. So, you know, you could get a property for £400,000. Or you could buy a piece of land. Now, land is expensive. I know I've spoke about adverse possession, but I wouldn't personally build a house on a piece of land I don't own, just in case the previous owners turn up. Now, land is expensive. You know, I am looking at pieces of land, and sometimes there are tiny little squares, smaller than my living room, going for over 10 grand. 10 grand's not a lot, really. Well, it doesn't get you that far, at least. But when you actually want to build a house and you need a little bit more space around you, even if I did it edge to edge on a piece of land, you know, I'm still having to look at like 50,000, I think. You know, for a suitable piece of land with road access, not part of a field which has been split up, which is a big situation I keep seeing online at the moment, where people are buying these fields, splitting them up into small pieces and go, you can own this piece for £13,000. It's like, yeah, but you bought the field for 150 grand and now you're selling 220 pieces of it. Does my head in. It really does my head in when, you know, you look at things like that. But the thing is I could build a house for less than 100 grand. I could, 100%. I could build a house for less than £100,000. I could probably build a house for £50,000, to be honest with you. I've done a breakdown cost on ChatGPT. I've done a lot of research. You know, I could build a shipping container home, well insulated, you know, 3 bedrooms for 50 grand if I do it all myself. But it is possible. It's completely possible. You know, you'd have to go to the suppliers and everything, but it is completely possible to do. But you can't get a mortgage on land. No, you can't. And then you've got to prove funds for a self-build mortgage. But for me, it would be, I'd be building as I'm going along. You know, well, I've got some money in, I could then build. So I can get a mortgage. I don't have 50 grand in the bank to buy a piece of land. I'm not asking you guys for 50 grand either. What I'm saying is just to live is expensive. Rent is expensive. Groceries are expensive. Fuel, it has been worse. It has. It's 10p cheaper up here than it is down south in some places. That's true. But it has been worse. You know, we've paid £2 a litre in this country. We get it. But it's just falling apart, you know? And as the sun comes out and I see the beauty of the northwest where I'm living, it's just lovely. You know, I love looking at the views. I love looking at the sun, and it's lovely. And then winter comes around and the country sucks. But this time, as the sun is coming up and it's setting later in the day, and I can feel the heat on me, and I'm taking my son to the park or whatever I'm doing, you know, it's always looming over that you've got to think about costs. And then you've got to think about your work-life balance. You know, there's only set days I can work. That's true. You know, I'm not free every day. I have a child. Life doesn't work like that. He's only in the childminders 3 days a week. So there's 3 days I can work between separate hours, specific hours. Sorry, I know I'm ranting here. But I just want this country to be great, I guess. You know, there are so many people moving to Sweden. I have relatives in Sweden. I have connections in Sweden. And, you know, I'm looking at properties in Sweden and it's like I could buy a house for like 10 grand. Okay, it might not be a big one, but I could get a piece of land for that. You know, there is so much possibility that you can do, right? But to be honest with you, I'm going to end up either A, bankrupting myself on rent, or B, I'll probably get a shared ownership property, to be honest with you, providing I can get the mortgage, obviously, owning a 10% share in a property, which I guess is good for stability, but I won't own it. I couldn't put on an extension, not like I can afford to, but like I couldn't just go and put on an extension, I couldn't just go and do things. And I think that's where I'm struggling, because with the world changing and with being able to not be able to afford anything, it leaves you in this position where you can't actually do anything. Because I live in a flat, so I don't have a garden, so I can't plant potatoes and carrots and stuff. I mean, I guess I could do them on the windowsill, but it'd be interesting to say the least with a cat, right? So I don't have the ability to do my gardening. Therefore, I can't save money with fruit and veg. I'm vegetarian. I don't eat a lot. Like, I don't eat meat. I couldn't even afford meat. Even if I was a meat eater, I couldn't even afford it. But like, if I had a garden, I could do my growing, right? If I had land, I could build a house and I could put solar panels on it and I could build a well and I could have some off-grid life. Not necessarily completely off-grid, because I guess we need infrastructure, and I like bowling. And like, my son's got to go to school, so, you know, as long as I'm like within like those sort of parameters, you know, you got to think about that sort of stuff. But like, there's so much constriction because we have to eat, so we have to pay these prices. And if we don't eat, we're going to starve ourselves or die. You know, there are people on benefits who are struggling. There are people who are working full-time jobs who are struggling. I know people on all ends of this spectrum, and everyone's struggling. It doesn't matter where you place yourself, you are struggling. And yeah, I'm not in a position to be rich right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, it'd be great. I've got some great film and TV show and documentary ideas that I have scripted out and everything, and I want to produce that sort of stuff. But right now it's not, you know, I don't have a connection at Netflix or someone where I can go, hey, I've got some great ideas. You know, I'm ready to move on that sort of stuff. And maybe if the stars aligned, I could do that. Maybe I could. But right now, I can't do my passion. Right now, I've got to continue with what I've got, and I've got to get by. And this is why people are ending up in credit card debts and on loans, and, you know, and then the interest rates have gone up anyway, right? Everyone is just struggling. It doesn't matter what position you are in, unless you physically live at home, you're struggling. And I can't live at home. I have a home. But no, I couldn't go and live with my family because I have brothers who are disabled, and, you know, my parents have just got remarried and stuff. Like, it's not physically possible. That's not a possibility. I can't just go and move home. That's not a thing. And bear in mind, I was kicked out when I was 17, so I don't really want to move home, okay? But, you know, if you live at home, you know, part of me is like, oh, do you know what? If you live at home, you should try and get a council flat, or, you know, try and move out or do something, you know, because you don't want to be at home. But to be honest with you, it's not a bad idea. And my mum keeps saying, you know, maybe we should do some multi-generational living. And I do get that. I do, but I also like my privacy. And this is the issue. There's no privacy in this country anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But, like, I'm sorry, I am completely rambling. The point of this video is this world is ever-changing. And I respect that it's like that in a lot of countries in the world right now. I completely get it, and I understand what America's going through with the tariffs and everything. I get it, right? I 100% get it. On my other YouTube channel, I have a video on New Zealand which has like 18,000 views, and I love it. It's a beautiful video. Now, the thing about that video is it has some comments on it where people are like, what are you on about? New Zealand's expensive. It's not. The prices have gone up in New Zealand. The prices have gone up in other countries, right? But the thing is even though they've gone up, they're not that bad. They're not. Come to England and experience what we've got. You know? Experience how much we pay per litre in fuel. Experience how much a block of cheese is. Now, I get it, cheese is expensive in other places, which makes no sense, to be honest with you. Fruit and veg, that annoys me how expensive that stuff is. It's... I'm sorry. If I was Prime Minister, this wouldn't be the case. If I was Prime Minister and I could take charge, I would have no tax on fruit and vegetables. I would have no tax on importations on a lot of things, right? On majority or whatever. I would raise the minimum wage. In fact, I'd get rid of minimum wage as the living wage, right? For 16-year-olds to 50-year-olds, whatever. Just one set wage, because if you're 14 or 16, you're doing the same job as someone who's 40, there shouldn't be a pay gap. Sorry. You know, if I was Prime Minister, tax would be minuscule on fuel. And I could go on about this, about if I was Prime Minister. If I was Prime Minister, I'd do this. Maybe I'll do a video on that. Maybe. Just not right now. But yeah, thank you for listening to my rant. If you'd like to hear more about me and my homelessness and adverse possession, check a link in the description below to the Terrible Festival. Fun for all the family. There's going to be a circus there. I'm going to be on stage doing a talk in August. So if you'd like to come along to that and see me, hang out with me, have a beer with me, go check that out. Thank you for listening to the rant. I'd like to hear your opinions and struggles, honestly, and I might make some videos on some cheaper ways of living and how to save money and things like that, because this world is just dehumanising, and yeah, I'm not the only one struggling, but it just angers me that everything is going up by 20p minimum, plus everything else. And wages never seem to be getting higher. Right, adios, my amigos. Please make sure to like this video, comment your issues below, because I'd really like to know, to be honest with you. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit that little bell notification, and share this video, because let's just get this video to whoever our Prime Minister is, because I don't actually know his name. Sadiq Khan? Sadiq Khan? I don't... Yeah, no. Is that the Mayor of London? I don't know. Yeah, just get the video out there. Goodbye. Sorry, I'm just angry about all of this.